What if the biggest mistake you're making with money isn't spending too much? It's letting people know you have it. Stop right there. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to go against everything you've been taught about success. It's going to feel wrong. It might even make you a little angry. But by the end of this video, you're going to look at money and the people around you completely differently. And you might never flex on social media again. There's a strategy that some of the wealthiest people in America are quietly using right now. They drive cars that look like they belong to a schoolteacher. They wear clothes from the clearance rack. Their homes sit in neighborhoods you wouldn't look at twice. And they are accumulating generational wealth at a pace that would make your jaw drop. This isn't an accident. This isn't humility. This is a deliberate, calculated, psychologically sophisticated system. And it has a name. It's called stealth wealth. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what stealth wealth is, why it works so powerfully in 2026, the psychological trap that's keeping the middle class broke while they look successful, and a story about someone named Marcus who cracked the code and changed his life in just 4 years. Stay with me, because what's coming in the next few minutes might be the most important money conversation you've ever had. Let's be honest with each other for a second. We live in a country where appearances are currency. In America, how you look often determines how you're treated. In a job interview, on a first date, walking into a dealership, posting on Instagram. We've built an entire social economy around the signals we send through what we wear, what we drive, and where we eat dinner on a Saturday night. And the financial industry? They know this. They've studied it for decades. Credit card companies, luxury automakers, fashion brands, they don't just sell products. They sell identity. They sell a feeling. They sell you the idea that if you own this thing, you become that person. Here's the brutal truth that nobody's saying out loud. Most people in this country are spending money they don't have, to buy things they don't need, to impress people who aren't even paying attention. The Federal Reserve's most recent report found that nearly 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Let that sink in. $400. And yet, on any given weekend, you'll see those same people posting photos in brand new Jordans, eating $80 brunches, upgrading to the latest iPhone that costs $1,200. This is the trap. This is the game. And the rich, the genuinely wealthy, they're not playing it. In fact, they're playing a completely different game. One that most people can't even see, because they're too busy watching the wrong scoreboard. Let me ask you something. When you picture a wealthy person, what do you see? Probably someone in a designer suit. A Range Rover parked out front. Maybe a big house in the suburbs with one of those tall, dramatic entryways. That's the Hollywood version of wealth. That's the Instagram version. That's the version that got sold to you starting when you were about 8 years old watching TV. But here's what actual data tells us. Thomas Stanley, the author of The Millionaire Next Door, spent decades studying the habits of real American millionaires. Not celebrities, not tech founders, but the quiet, unremarkable millionaires who live in ordinary neighborhoods across this country. What he found was shocking to most people. The typical American millionaire drives a used car. They buy their clothes on sale. They've lived in the same modest house for over a decade. They don't look rich. They don't act rich. But they are extraordinarily wealthy. Meanwhile, the people who look rich? The ones with the flashy cars and the designer bags and the vacation posts? More often than not, they're drowning. They're financing the car. They're carrying a balance on the credit card. They're one layoff away from a financial emergency. This is the illusion of wealth. It's everywhere. And it is costing the American middle class billions of dollars a year. Not in fraud, not in theft, but in the quiet, voluntary bleeding of money toward status symbols that do nothing to build actual net worth. Think about it this way. A new BMW costs, let's say, $65,000. The monthly payment on that, financed over 60 months, is somewhere around $1,100 after taxes and fees. Over 5 years, you've paid about $66,000 for a car that is now worth maybe $35,000. You've lost $31,000. That's not including insurance, which runs higher on luxury vehicles. That's not including maintenance and registration. Now imagine instead that you drove a dependable used Toyota Camry you bought for $14,000 cash. Your payment is zero. Your insurance is lower. And that $1,100 a month you would have spent on the BMW? Over 5 years, invested in a simple index fund averaging 10% annual returns? That's roughly $85,000. You didn't just save $31,000. You built $85,000. That's a swing of over $116,000 from one car decision. And that's just one car. Multiply that logic across every financial decision you make in a year, and you begin to understand how the truly wealthy pull away from everyone else without anyone even noticing. I want to tell you about Marcus. Marcus is 34 years old. He lives in Atlanta. He works in IT project management, and in 2020, he was making $78,000 a year, which in Atlanta is a decent salary. He was renting an apartment in one of the trendier neighborhoods, driving a leased Audi A4, and spending about $400 a month on going out, clothes, and subscriptions he barely used. He looked good. His Instagram was clean. His friends thought he was doing great. His mother bragged about him at family dinners. But Marcus had $2,300 in his savings account. He had $19,000 in credit card debt spread across 4 cards. And he had a student loan balance of $34,000 that he was making minimum payments on. On paper, Marcus was drowning. In real life, Marcus looked like he was winning. The turning point came when his car got sideswiped in a parking lot. Nothing major, just a fender bender. The repair bill was $1,800. And Marcus sat in the auto shop parking lot and felt something shift inside him. He couldn't pay the bill without putting it on a credit card. He was working 50-hour weeks, making good money, and he couldn't handle an $1,800 repair without going into more debt. That night, Marcus went home and did something he hadn't done in years. He sat down and actually looked at his finances. Not a quick glance. A real hard, honest look. And what he saw made him sick. He was spending $1,340 a month on his car, lease payment, insurance, and gas combined. He was paying $380 a month in minimum payments on credit cards that were barely going down. He had exactly 22 days of expenses saved, and he was spending roughly $1,200 a month on what he later called, looking like I'm doing fine. Marcus made a decision that night that most people would find embarrassing. He let the lease end and didn't renew it. He bought a 2017 Honda Civic with 62,000 miles on it for $11,500 cash. Money he scraped together by selling some electronics and pulling from a small account he'd forgotten about. He moved to a slightly less hip neighborhood and cut his rent by $450 a month. He deleted Instagram off his phone. Not forever, just for 90 days. And then he did something radical. He started directing every dollar he used to spend on appearances directly into debt payoff and investment. Within 18 months, his credit card debt was gone. Within 3 years, his student loans were paid off. Today, 4 years after that parking lot moment, Marcus has $67,000 in a brokerage account. Your expenses rise to meet your income, and you never actually get ahead. The treadmill just moves faster. And here's the deepest psychological trap inside all of this. The things you're buying to feel wealthy are the exact same things preventing you from becoming wealthy. That's not a slogan. That's math. Every dollar you spend on a status symbol is a dollar that doesn't compound. And compound interest, Warren Buffett has said this many times, is the closest thing to magic in the financial world. Here's where I need to say something that's going to sound backward. Looking wealthy is not just expensive. It is a signal to other people, and to your own brain, that you've already arrived. And the moment you believe you've arrived, you stop doing the things that build actual wealth. Think about it. The person driving the BMW to work every day is sending a message to the world. But they're also receiving a message, from themselves, every time they look in the rearview mirror. The message is, I'm successful. I've made it. I deserve this. Which makes it psychologically harder to do the unglamorous, boring, patient work of actually building wealth. Stealth wealth, on the other hand, creates a completely different internal story. When you live below your means, when you don't look the part, your brain keeps you hungry. It keeps you in accumulation mode rather than spending mode. You're not performing success. You're building it. Here's another counterintuitive truth that wealthy people understand deeply. The less you advertise your wealth, the more of it you keep. And I don't just mean financially. Think about what happens when people know you have money. Suddenly, your cousin needs a loan. Your friend expects you to pick up dinner. Your family assumes you'll cover the vacation rental. Financial visibility creates financial obligations, both formal and social. The stealth wealth practitioner avoids this entire ecosystem simply. Position. There's a concept in economics called the wealth effect, which describes how people feel richer and spend more when asset values rise. The stealth wealth strategy inverts this on purpose. You deliberately keep your lifestyle modest, your expenses low, and your financial life private, which prevents the psychological inflation that leads to the spending spiral. And here's what makes this especially powerful in 2026 specifically. We are living through an era of financial fragility combined with massive wealth illusion. Inflation hit hard in recent years. Interest rates went up dramatically. Credit card debt in America just crossed $1.1 trillion. That's a record. The people who are genuinely going to come out ahead in this environment are not the ones who looked wealthy during the party. They're the ones who were quietly building while everyone else was spending. So what does stealth wealth actually look like in practice? How do you apply this to your real life without feeling like you're living in deprivation? The first principle is this: spend on experiences and assets, not signals. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your money, but there's a difference between spending $3,000 on a meaningful family vacation, something that creates genuine joy and memory, and spending $3,000 on a handbag because you want to walk into a room and have people notice it. One is a purchase that feeds your soul. The other is a purchase that feeds your ego. Your ego is not an investment account. The second principle is to optimize for net worth, not net impression. Your net worth is the actual number, assets minus liabilities. Your net impression is what other people think when they see you. These two numbers can move in completely opposite directions. Marcus looked great and had a net worth approaching negative $50,000. 4 years later, he doesn't look as flashy, and his net worth is solidly positive and climbing. Which version of Marcus is actually winning? The stealth wealth strategy is at its core about radical honesty. Honesty with yourself about what you actually have versus what you look like you have. Honesty about what actually makes a good life. Peace, freedom, options, security, versus what our culture tells us makes a good life. Honesty about the scoreboard you're actually playing on. The scoreboard that matters is not how many likes you get. It is not how your car compares to your neighbors. It is not whether you can afford the same restaurant as your coworkers. The scoreboard that matters is: are you building something real? Do you have options? Is your future getting more secure each year, or less? The wealthiest people I've ever read about or studied have one thing in common that has nothing to do with their investment strategy or their income. They are profoundly unbothered by what other people think of their spending. They have made peace with looking ordinary. They have understood, deeply, not just intellectually, that what you show the world and what you build in private are two entirely different things. And they have chosen deliberately and repeatedly to build. What are you choosing? That question isn't rhetorical. I genuinely want you to sit with it. Think about the last 3 things you bought that you didn't absolutely need. Were they purchases that built your life, your health, your relationships, your financial future? Or were they purchases that managed your image? There's no judgment in that question. I've been on the wrong side of it plenty of times myself. But awareness is the beginning. And once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. You'll start noticing it everywhere, in ads, in conversations, in your own impulses at the mall, or scrolling your feed at midnight. If this video opened something up for you, I'd love to know about it. Drop a comment below and tell me. What's one area where you've been playing the look wealthy game instead of the build wealth game? The comments section here doesn't judge. It just talks real money. And if you want to keep going deeper on this, if you're serious about the kind of mindset shifts that actually change your financial life, not just the tips and tricks but the psychology underneath all of it, then you're in the right place. On Money Files, we break down the real mechanics of wealth building in America. The habits, the psychology, the strategies that quietly separate the people who get ahead from the people who just look like they are. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.